We are checking out Rick Ross's biography, Hurricanes. Rick Ross, the hip hop impresario from Florida. Let's go ahead and get into it and come back to my reaction. This is chapter 6. I'm sorry, this is chapter 3. Let's get into it.
Niggas like Fat Sean and Canhead had no aspirations beyond running their little traps in Carroll City, nor did they have the capacity to do so. But even as he ascended to Kingpin, Booby always carried himself more like an ambassador than a dictator. His vision extended beyond the matchbox. Miss Angel's apartment wasn't just a drug lab. It was an armory where everybody stashed their guns. It was a safe house to lay low at following home invasions. Because as much as Booby and his crew were dope boys, they were robbers too. They had a serious stick-up operation going. If one of them got tipped off about a nearby stash house holding bricks, they would ski mask up and go take them. They were hitting the pawn shops and department stores too. Miami is where smash and grab burglaries were invented. They'd round up a few stolen cars and drive one straight through the store's front windows. They'd load up the others with as much jewelry, guns, and clothes as they could and take off into the night. Jabbar and I were sleeping over Miss Angel's the first time I saw them come back from one of these excursions. It was the middle of the night when they busted in, fussing and fighting over the spoils and who was getting what. Whatever clothes didn't fit them or little chains they decided they didn't want, they let me and Jabbar have. We looked up to these niggas and they looked out for us. At first, they probably tolerated us because they knew and respected Big Mike, but eventually, they took a genuine liking to us. T-Man and Treats were the first niggas to front me and Jabbar ounces of crack. We were so young, we really didn't know what to do with it. We just knew we wanted in. So we brought it to Angel's son, Jabbar's cousin Arthur, who showed us how to cut it up into different sized rocks and explained to us our profit margins. We eventually realized that Arthur was robbing us. Since he actually lived at Miss Angel's, he knew where we hid our bomb, and when Jabbar and I would go home for the night, he would go cut up a bunch of rocks for himself out of our stash. It was all love, though. Getting finesse was one of the growing pains of learning the dope game. These guys knew we were too little to be taking over other niggas' corners, so they let us get off our little sacks out of Miss Angel's. When a junkie would come in looking for something small to get him to the next day, they sent him our way to put a couple dollars in our pockets. They looked out for us. When I look back on the path I started heading down, I can't say I didn't know any better. My family was by no means rich, but we weren't living in roach-infested projects either. Carroll City was considered a middle-class neighborhood. It was a refuge from the violence that was happening in Liberty City and Overtown. I'd come from a household with 2 educated and successful parents. I couldn't blame them. Nobody was smoking crack. Nobody was beating on each other. My daddy smoked too many cigarettes and drank too many Michelob Ultras, but it wasn't like his vices were tearing our house apart. He was always real smooth with it. But around the time I started hanging out in the Matchbox, my life at home changed. When I was 11, my parents told my sister and I they were separating. Over the years, they had grown to love and respect one another, and they made a loving home for their children. But I don't know if my parents were ever in love in that way. They didn't have that type of affectionate relationship. As far as divorces go, it wasn't a nasty one. There was no talking bad about each other or fighting over money or the house. There were no lawyers involved. They handled it well. But my daddy moved back up to North Florida, and I didn't see him too much after that. My daddy caught a bus, never looking back, got me standing in the rain, first 50-pack. Fascinated, Port of Miami 2, 2019. My father's absence left a void at home. My mama started having to work even more than she already was, and I started spending more time with guys like Booby and Big Mike. The dope boys became my role model figures. The way the feds tell it, Booby and Mike were monsters preying on their own kind. But I saw a different side of that story. Every Christmas, Booby would host a toy drive at the Omega Center, where hundreds of toys would be given out to the youth of Carroll City. So to me, they were Robin Hood types. All the just say no to drugs messaging I was getting at school was telling me the dope was ruining a lot of lives. But at the same time, I was seeing smiles on kids' faces when they got their first bikes for Christmas. The ethics of hustling was complicated. The line between right and wrong was fuzzy. When I first started elementary school, I wanted to be a good student. Both of my parents were smart as hell, and I looked up to them. But as the years went on, I started realizing that I was damn near retarded when it came to school. Do you know how badly I would have liked to learn Spanish? The prettiest girl in my school was Puerto Rican, and she was my first love. Once a week, she'd come to class in her favorite Menudo t-shirt. That was the boy band all the Spanish girls liked back then. I would have loved to be able to say some fly poppy chulo shit to her. Math was the worst. When it came time to learn the multiplication tables, I had some sort of mental block. My mama got me the flashcards. She hired a tutor for me at one point. I just could not memorize those. That was really the reason I became the class clown. It was the one thing in school I got positive feedback from. But for some reason, when Arthur showed me and Jabbar how to bust down an ounce, that was something I could wrap my head around. 28 grams in an ounce, 36 ounces in a kilo. If I sell a gram for $50, it made sense to me. Big Mike tried to keep us out the streets at first. He didn't like that Jabbar and I were hanging out in the Matchbox. He knew what was going on at Angels and didn't want us to be a part of it. He'd sent Jabbar to Our Lady of Perpetual Help, the Catholic school in Opelika that all the dope boys' kids went to, and eventually he took him out of Miami altogether. The problem was Mike never shielded us from seeing all the money, or his gold 500 SEL Benz with the champagne leather seats and windshield wipers on the headlights, or the bricks wrapped in cellophane, or his 308 Winchester with the bubble level scope. You could hit a nigga in another city with that rifle. See, it's one thing to tell a couple jits that selling drugs is wrong, but when you show them what $1 million looks like and have them count it for you, that message goes in one ear and out the other. Suddenly, old Scrappy, that's what we called my daddy's Buick, didn't seem like a nice enough car for me. Suddenly, working 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the car wash and staying on the straight and narrow didn't seem all that appealing either. But Mike did try to warn us. Only 1 out of 1,000 hustlers make it, Mike would always say. When you get older, you're either going to be broke, dead, or serving a life sentence. Trust me. Those are the only things that are going to happen. It was too late, though. I had already seen too much. I was infatuated with wealth. I was infected with greed.
So yeah, that is Rick Ross's descent into the dope game, Miami, Carroll City. Shout out to Carroll City. I got cousins that live out there and stuff. Anyway, it's funny. I'm listening to this book, which is a really good book. The narrator of this book is really good. He's good at narrating. You kind of feel like it's Rick Ross, talking. That's a lot of times. That's what makes a good audiobook, when the person can capture the person's essence. He don't sound like Rick Ross, but he has his essence. This is whoever chose him to narrate his book. He makes it really interesting because it feels like Rick Ross is actually talking, But it's funny. I'm looking for the part where he was a correction officer. Officer Ricky. I don't see. It ain't came up yet. Is he gonna put that part in the book, or he's gonna keep that part out? I'm gonna continue on to check out this audiobook, and you should check it out too as well. It's on Spotify and it's also on Audible. You can purchase it on Audible. But if you got Spotify, you can listen to it for free. It's called Hurricanes by Rick Ross. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button and let me know what y'all think about this book in the comments. Hit the thumbs up button.